Batman Legends of the Dark Knight 32 to 34 is a three-parter called Blades, which is, I believe, one of the first things that Tim Sale ever did on Batman. I think the first thing he did was the Madman Across the Water 2-parter, or maybe it was just Single Issue, I forget, in DC Showcase Presents, but this is pretty much his first big work on the book, and in a lot of ways is kind of proto-Long Halloween, because everything that doesn't work here is what makes Long Halloween super amazing, except for the art, because the art here is simply superb. In some ways even not more dynamic, but a little bit more normal art, like, in a way which it makes it feel good, but not as like much of an experience as Long Halloween, which is kind of for the best. Though, as much as I love the art, the big problem is the writing, which is unfortunate because James Robinson is absolutely fantastic and stuff like Starman, but here he falls into a lot of problems Batman writers were having at the time. Stuff like repeated lines that didn't really need to be, or like words that didn't really need to be repeated, or just over dramatic narration, having Batman talk as if he's almost, it's a weird thing where when you're writing in prose, you don't write like a person talks in real life. Like, dialogue, you don't want the dialogue to feel stilted, but don't have a person stutter, don't have a person slur their words, stuff like that. And that's not what happens here, but it's something weird where when Batman's talking to himself, and he does things when he's talking to himself, it's like that. Like, he repeats like the beginning of a sentence and then continues, and says stuff like, Mr. Lime did this, Mr. Lime did this and this, Mr. Lime did that and that. He repeats like the same thing over, which is how, yes, you work that over in your head when you're talking about something, but in a comic, in prose, that doesn't matter. You write it like a fully formed thought, even if the person's not fully formed their thoughts yet. You don't write it with, stuttering and stuff like that, or things where a person gets confused trying to figure out what they're trying to say. You don't do that. It just feels so out of place and awkward. Also, there's randomly repeated lines, which every writer seemed to have at this time. Doug Moench had it a little bit, Alan Grant had it, Miller in a few years would have it in spades. Even Jeff Loeb had this a little bit in Long Halloween. It was there, and just a lot of different writers have this. I think even Denny O'Neil might occasionally fall into that, I think, in Venom, but it's been a while since I read that. And also, pretty much everyone who did Legends of the Dark Knight, for some reason, like, really good writers would just all of a sudden start falling into that when they do that book. It's really kind of awkward and out of place, because Robinson acts as if Mr. Lime, the name of the killer, is like this dramatic, thing. The fact that, this guy's name is so thematically important, and let's repeat it over and over. Mr. Lime, Mr. Lime. It doesn't mean anything. It's not important. It's not like a thematic thing. Contrast that to, like I said, stuff that was improved in Long Halloween. There's repeated lines and stuff like that there, but it's more of, stuff like, 2 shots to the head, and if you ask me, it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, or I believe in blank. It wasn't stilted like this. And Mr. Lime himself is interesting with the whole euthanasia plot, or not really subplot. Well, this entire thing is kind of a subplot, but the whole idea of Mr. Lime, where he euthanizes people, is kind of interesting and could make it a somewhat cool kind of slasher flick-esque villain in the way that, you know, Scourge, or the guy whose name starts with an A that I can't pronounce, from the, like, early 90s, stuff like that. Like, it could fit with that, but he's just kind of a guy by the end, which works for what they're trying to tell in the story, but it kind of feels a little bit disjointed, and by the end the mystery kind of is decent, but they act as if this is like some grandiose thing and it works so well. Again, they keep, you know, kind of talking about how, you know, this is like the hardest case ever and stuff like that, and I don't buy it. It doesn't work to that, it doesn't build to that, it doesn't earn it. And again, something Long Halloween improved upon, you know, did really well, where in that story, the case, you know, here Bruce is kind of emotionally invested and starting to lose it because, you know, these, you know, he's seen the children of these people who are murdered who are around his age, and, you know, he's reminded of himself and how, you know, he's still pissed over his past death. He thinks he can help these people, and that works as him being emotionally invested, but they act like this is the most emotional, deep thing ever. Like, they act like this is, like, I mean, they put less emphasis on Bruce's hatred of Joker post-Jason Todd's death than, you know, Robinson does here with Lime. Like, he treats it like this is such a big deal. And Long Halloween, again, earns why Bruce is emotionally invested, because it's his friend, you know, and, you know, he can't deal with the fact that he's failing to solve a mystery, stuff like that. Here, it's not in the forefront. If it was, maybe I would like it better, but they don't really do much with it. It kind of just disappears for issues, pages on end, and then kind of just reappears as if it's been this, you know, amazing thing that everyone so, you know, wants to see finished. But it really doesn't earn that too much. And then that's problematic, but it's more of a nitpick. Well, some of this is nitpicking, that's kind of a genuine problem, because it takes up, it creates some really kind of pointless scenes that should be spent on the Cavalier, who's really the star of this story. Because the Cavalier, here, makes his first big appearance post-Crisis, because he had appeared occasionally post-Crisis, but in his original form, or his original version, because this guy is Hudson Pyle, who is only the Cavalier here. Before and after, the Cavalier is Mortimer, however you pronounce that, Drake. And that guy, you know, was appearing in, I believe, he appeared in Detective Comics, I believe, at first, and then had quite a few appearances pre-Crisis in Batman Family in the 70s. And here, they kind of give Cavalier a character, and it's really quite interesting, and he's fun, he's energetic, has personality, his dialogue isn't stilted or anything, and just overall, he's incredibly fun. The whole touch of Batman's, you know, kind of letting him be the vigilante, taking care of Gotham for a while, really does work, because with the whole idea of he reminds him of Zorro, and because of that, he's going easy on him, and he's kind of, you know, nostalgic and kind of almost not hero worshipping, but to an extent admiring the fact that this guy reminds him of his hero, and that definitely works. And the ties to Zorro are very much throughout this book, both, you know, in the Cavalier and in a character who I think is just a fictional actor. I've looked it up, pretty sure it's just fictional, but this guy, Melvin Abmech, I don't know how to pronounce the name, but apparently this guy who in the universe worked with Tyrone Powers, who is the actor who played Zorro in the 1940 remake of, in the 1940 version of The Mark of Zorro, which was originally a 1920s film with Douglas Fairbanks, and then in 1940 they remade it, and then they remade it again in 74. And the one that, according to Miller, it is the 1941 with Tyrone Power. So they have that tied into this, which works. Another thing though that Long Halloween does better is, and again, it's like this is proto Long Halloween. Like the mobster here, whose name is I think Salt, it's just so generically villainous. And Bruce is like, he's, they're trying to draw a parallel between him, the Cavalier, and Batman, where Batman's, kind of one extent who believes he can't be corrupted, which I don't completely buy, especially because just in terms of publication and chronologically, Batman's already been through the whole idea of maybe, he's doing bad things, or maybe he is kind of capable of evil. I mean, he kind of has that a little bit in stories that have already happened in Legends of the Dark Knight. He already has this in stuff like Year 1. This was kind of in Year 2 was kind of a continuity story. I think that story definitely dealt with this, and this seems to be in the Year 2 period, so maybe the whole taking a gun to Joe Chill thing might not have happened, but it kind of feels like, because Gordon's still captain, so it means it takes place in that year. That could just be kind of a continuity slip, and then that just thematic, not thematically, like character-wise, I don't buy Batman being like, what? I have the potential for being evil at some point. They could have done stuff with that and parallel that to the mobster, but there's nothing there. Bruce even says this guy's just born evil, and that really doesn't work. And they draw a great they do what this should have been with the parallels, where you have the person who's kind of more plainly evil in a way, who's within Long Halloween, Bertha Falcone, Maroni, all those people, and then you have the crazies, who are just a pure evilness and insanity and madness, who are Joker and of course the Holiday Killer. And then then there's Batman in the middle, and then of course on the other farthest extent is Harvey, who then becomes corrupted by that, becomes insane. But here Salt is just so freaking generic. He's just kind of pure evil and just no motive, nothing, just kind of a bad guy. And it's sad because Cavalier was so interesting, and even though again I don't completely buy Batman never having dealt with the whole idea of there is the potential of evil with him, I still think that should have been the focus. You could have, even if I don't buy that by this point he hasn't dealt with that, it's if you tell the story well, I can still accept that, even if it doesn't match up completely continuity and character-wise thus far in his career. I can still buy that. I can still, if you tell your story well enough, I'll accept that. But they don't really tell anything with that. And just overall, this book kind of, especially with how Hudson, the Cavalier, kind of starts to go evil, and we find out that he's stealing stuff, and then he kills the mobster to protect his love interest and stuff like that, and that works definitely. And it's really interesting where he saves Batman from the whirly bat when that's about to explode. He says, I'm not a killer, or if I was, I would have killed you. And then he proceeds to later kind of lose it and kill Salt, and Salt's second in command, and kind of tells Batman that happened, and feels incredibly guilty, and even enjoys himself in doing it, and kind of has this thrill to that, and feels just absolutely horrible about the fact that he's at heart potentially a bad person. And that's really interesting, and makes me kind of wish they didn't, spoilers, kill him off. But pretty much it's another thing that kind of makes this the inferior Long Halloween, because the personal feelings Bruce has on the case, done better in Long Halloween, the mobsters, done better in Long Halloween, and the love interest, specifically for the tragic villain, here it's just kind of jumped in as a plot point and an excuse for him to eventually kill. While in Long Halloween, Jilda Dent is really interesting, even though the whole BS thing at the end makes that entire book fall apart for me, and I really hate that final page with Long Halloween. But the whole tragic thing there, it actually works. The tragic villain thing, though, both Harvey himself and Hudson really do work as characters, and I kind of wish in the New 52 we would bring Hudson back, because he really does work as a character. And overall, just the last act of the final issue, like the last 10 pages, pretty much after Bruce wakes up and finds Mr. Lime, everything from that point on is really good and really solidly written. Even the Batman stuff himself, really does work, and I just wish that was the entire story. And overall, they either should have given Bruce that subplot of focusing on you have a potential of evil deep down, every man does, or they should have not even give Bruce a subplot at all, and just have it be about the Cavalier and his effect on Batman, but don't do it from Batman's perspective, which was another thing that Long Halloween did really well, where you're not always looking from Batman's perspective. He's kind of your protagonist, but there are key scenes where we don't get his thoughts, because he's still an enigma to us. The entire time we're kind of looking at him through the lens of Gordon and Harvey. And that's kind of how this should have been. And again, it's kind of unfair maybe to complain that it's not like Long Halloween, but everything they do here kind of is done better here, or is done better there, and the fact that it's the exact same artist is, Tim Sale, is kind of funny. Which, of course, I actually read this in the Tales of Batman Tim Sale trade, and it's a really great read, and it's a great trade, especially, because Tim Sale is just amazing, but he's kind of the highlight of this, and so is the Cavalier, and they really do need to do something soon with that character. Maybe even, they could even have it be that the Drake Cavalier is the Cavalier, but maybe have it be that Gordon and everyone faces off in Gotham against Hudson, because it's kind of implied here that Hudson may have inspired the second Cavalier down the line. But all in all, I would say if you can find each issue for like $1.50, or if you just buy the trade overall, because Misfits, the first arc, which has Alan Grant, is amazing. And the arc after this, that's included, is another Alan Grant thing, and it's just fantastic. And overall, it's just a lot of great, Tim Sale stuff, and with this book in particular, though, with this story, I'm mixed on it. I would say it's worth reading, especially for that last issue and for the Cavalier and for just the art alone. But if you don't pick it up, you're not missing much. You'll kind of want to look at the Dark Knight was trying to find its footing. If you want to look at the Dark Knight thing, pick up Venom or Shaman, or especially Gothic. Gothic is one of Morrison's best things. Granted, it's Grant Morrison, so pretty much everything he's done is great except for maybe his X-Men stuff. But this is decent, but it definitely has flaws. So if I was to give it a grade, I guess I'd say 6 out of 10, but I would recommend it if you have the money to spare, and it's like you picked up the other, if you picked up Venom and Shaman and Gothic, then definitely pick this up. But if you've already read through those stories, but if you haven't yet, read those first, because those are better. But, yeah.